this week, there's this, it goes back and forth. People think, note investing is a passive investment. It's like, is it a passive investment? So we're going to talk about what's passive about it. Is there parts of it that are passive? Is there parts that are not? We know that to be kind of true, but even performing notes, are they passive? Like, is it really such thing as, is there anything that's ever set it and forget it? But is notes one of them that you can set it and forget it? So starting off, Rick, what parts of note investing are passive?
Oh man, that's good. It's a good question. Note investing, yes, it can be very passive, and it can not be passive. It just depends on. There's several factors on what type of loan you're buying. Are you buying a performing loan versus a non-performing loan?
Right.
What are your systems set up? What's your team like? And are you doing this are you intending to do this as a passive investment versus you're doing this as a full-time business? Right? Because if you're doing this as a full-time business and you're like, look, this is what I do, well, it's a very active, it's your business. You don't start and run a business and it be passive. Right. If it's a full-time business, you're probably starting with your own capital, then you're building systems in place, you're building a team, you're actively doing workouts, and then you're probably out there raising capital. So it's very much an active.
Got it. Now, if say you're somebody who's got a full-time job over here, W-2, and you're just like, look, I have a self-directed IRA. I want to get a straight yield at like 8 to 9%, 10%, whatever. Like, that's passive?
It can be passive, yes. It can be very passive, and it can vary. It can vary in how passive it is, right? So
what's the one extreme? Like, most passive it can be like,
easily, the most passive way to invest in mortgage debt is to invest in a fund that invests in mortgage debt, right?
That makes total sense.
You literally give them the money. So, MWM fund, we're closed down, not taking investments, but there's other funds over, whether it's
Chris 70.
Chris 70's got a fund. Eddie Speed's got Colonial Capital Management. Martin Sains has got a fund. I'm sure who else is out
Dan Deppen. There's a whole bunch of them out there.
Jason Lewis has a fund. There's a lot of different funds out there that you can sort of just take your money, plug it into it, and just be done, right? So that's the most passive.
That's so true because I went to an event at Martin's during Christmas, and some guy that was a big real estate guy out of New York, he was there, and what I realized is that a lot of them that were there were invested in his fund, and he had been doing like the everyday, tenants and toilets and stuff like that, and he said, he just put his stuff in a couple different passive things, and he put, one of them was Martin's thing, one of them was like Yield Street, he just did all kinds of stuff, and now he's making good yields, good stuff, but he just kind of, now he's completely passive. But
now it is completely passive, and that's what you're if that's what you're looking for, that's the way to do it. Now the other extreme is you're buying non-performing loans that you're just require in-depth workouts, and you're taking them through foreclosure, and you're getting them back and doing the rehab on them and selling them and doing owner financing on them. There's a whole lot of moving parts in there, right?
Yes, and so those yields though are drastically different than what a passive could be.
Of course. Well, they could be, or they could not be. I mean, one of the things about investing in a fund is if you are invested in a fund, they're investing in multiple assets, hundreds, if not thousands of assets, right?
Yes.
If one asset goes bad, and let me tell you, if you're in this business for any length of time, it's going to happen. I remember when we started, we were batting 1,000 for so long. We were just batting 1,000 for so long. And I was just like, I don't know what people are talking about. You lose, it's going to happen. And it's just a law of averages. It's going to happen. Like, you could do the best at buying things. It doesn't matter. Things can go wrong. And when things go wrong, they can go way off the tracks. So, but if you're buying in a fund, arguably your investment is diversified over multiple assets. So you might look at you're getting an 8 to 10% return in a fund, and is it a 23% return? No. But if you are able to invest $50,000 or $100,000 and have that spread out over, hundreds of assets, then the performance of the fund isn't based off of one asset. Versus if you buy 3 or 4 assets and you have one of them that goes really wrong, that one can just erase most, if not all, profits from the other three that you bought, right?
Interesting.
And so it's
the interesting thing too, you can.
But you could bet 1,000 on 4 non-performers, get them back, and make 30 or 40 or 50% returns.
Very true. But there's also a difference between the fund and also buying notes, say on Paperstac, where you're buying just say performing, and you're hoping that they all go right, and so you have 10 of them. Well, if you're with a fund, and you're like, look, I'm done. I'm gonna cash out, I guess. But you're not. You don't actually hold an asset. You have your money in the fund, but unlike that, you bought the assets off Paperstac, you have 10 of them.
Yep.
You're like, look, I'm gonna cash out. But you have an asset to sell. Here, you don't have an asset to sell.
You don't have an asset to sell. You're just selling your interest in the fund.
Yeah.
And then sometimes they have locks, some different funds. So, passive, there might be a little less control over your capital, a little less liquidity. There might be lockup periods versus in the if it's your own stuff, you can buy and sell at will.
Another way to do something passive, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rick, but another method that might work if you're looking at passive is doing a partial. Partials probably seem pretty passive, right?
Partial, it's a great way to have a passive investment. You can buy an income stream for a given length of time. And if the person you're buying it from is, they're obviously financially motivated to keep that deal good, because if not,
it falls back on them.
It falls back on them, and you can foreclose.
But you might be able to get a higher yield than you most likely could than within a fund.
Sure, but at the end of the day, you still have to have. It's all degrees of how passive is it, right?
Very true. And then also too, a lot of times when you're buying one of those notes, I guess a lot of times, with a note, if you're buying a partial, it does allow you to be non-accredited. It's a lot of these funds that are Reg Ds, you have to be accredited, right?
You got to be accredited investor, so it's a way to get in there. So you can buy performing loans and still be passive with it, right?
Right.
So it's all about setting up your team. And if you're using your self-directed IRA, 401k, there's certain rules in place, which I don't know the exact swim lanes that you have to swim in. But I know that it's like, look, you can't be out there, if you're buying, a fix and flip, you can't be the one swinging the hammers. You got to pay somebody to do that. So setting up a team, and your team, setting up a team could sound daunting, but that could simply be just getting the right servicer in place, right? So having a servicer that you can do it, or picking up an asset management firm and saying, look, I need you to go ahead and manage this if things go wrong. And they don't always go wrong, but sometimes they go wrong. So that's a way to mitigate it, to buy a performing asset, buy it with your own self-directed IRA or your retirement account or whatever. You go ahead and put the right team in place, and then it can be as passive as it needs to be. You can just be answering emails and phone calls, and rarely do they use a phone call. They just send you an email. Hey, escrow is short $21. How do you want to fund this? Do you want to fund? So just fund it from the next payment, something like that. Or if they stop making payments at that point, FCI is really good about this. They're like, do you need us to run quarterback on this? Yes. It's going to cost you some more money. Of course, it's $95 a month for them to do it. Is that worth it? For me, it is, because it's like, look, that's still a passive investment for me. And right now, even though it's non-performing, real estate market's so hot. Hey, yeah, I'll take that house back.
Right.
Yeah. So setting up your systems, knowing your game plan, what's your loss mitigation strategy? If you give your loss mitigation strategy to your team, to your servicer in advance, say, here, this is the route that we're going to take. These are the steps that I would like you to take. Offer, start here. If that doesn't work, go to this, go to that, go to this. Offer them the playbook, the recipe. Once they have that, you're sitting back and seeing what happens.
So question, let's just pretend that we're with FCI, because you were talking about FCI and how they run quarterback. Are they, say like I have my own strategy and you got your playbook, they know, hey, this is Rick's playbook, this is Brett's playbook, and they can kind of jump from one to one, or is it like, here's our recipes?
Usually they're pretty standard. Yeah. And so if there's gonna be some other standardized, if there's some other things that your secret sauce that you're doing for loss mitigation, you may run it by them and see if you can step in and do that.
Oh, so you would do those things?
Sometimes I've done that. Yeah. We set up, I've worked with FCI and SN, and they're both a little different.
You have that one strategy where you send out the FedEx package.
Yep. Yeah, we would send out just FedEx anything, really. You could, if you needed to get something to the borrowers, mail is one way to do it. Certified mail is never usually good. Everybody loves FedEx or Amazon packages, right?
Amazon packages.
They open it up, and so
how would you get this is the one question because I tried to.
How would I get an Amazon box?
Oh, a box.
Well, boxes, yeah, mostly.
Okay, so I was thinking it was like the blue bag, and like I was like, did you reseal the blue bag? Or?
No. You know, I've used the blue bags before, but usually just a FedEx package gets it done. That catches people's attention if you send a FedEx package because, you know, FedEx packages, it's like somebody spent, you know,
money,
$20 to get this to me. This is probably pretty important.
Right. What is
so,
this?
Hey, they want to make sure I got this. It usually sparks a phone call.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, versus a certified mail, it's like, even though it may cost you $6 to send something certified mail, people look at it and be like, I'm not really going to read this, or I'm not going to respond. They didn't take, but if you send something via FedEx or UPS, it's like, listen.
I mean, a lot of times, even with the certified, it's just like a yellow sticker, right?
Yeah, it's a green sticker, but yeah.
I mean, sometimes someone might not even know what that means. You know, just might be like, "What's that?" You know.
Point is everybody does that. I don't know how you got us off on that, but anyways, have your loss mitigation strategies there, and hand them off so that way you can make and set it up to be as passive as you'd like to be. You know, you can make it as passive as you want or non-passive as you want. You know, some people are type A, control. They gotta have it. They gotta get it done.
That makes sense. So I guess to answer the question, passivity is possible, but with different degrees.
Correct.
Yeah. So it can go from a sliding scale of completely passive, it's in a fund, all I do is, you know, check on the quarterlies, read whatever the reports they give me, blah, 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 to I'm working day to day, doing the, you know, fix and flip, going through the non-performing section of it.
Yep.
And so you got a whole range, and I guess the thing is for people to understand is that you just got to pick which one you're going to line up within. You know, if you're going to be the single asset owner, or you're going to be the fund, or you're going to be swinging the hammers and fixing things on a non-performer.
Yeah, so it's
breaking down walls, as Rick likes to say.
Yeah, breaking down. I think
that's his favorite thing to do.
Break down walls.
You always say if you start having to break down walls or open up a wall.
If you don't want to start opening up walls. When you open up walls, that's when things go wrong. That's when you're like, it's like anything, right? You start getting in there, and like if you work on engines or take apart cars or do anything like that, like if it's working and you start pulling pieces off, you might snap a bolt off. You don't know what's going to happen when you get in there. So I say, like, listen, anybody who's done a rehab knows when you start opening up walls, shit hits the fan. It just happens. You always, because your budget always gets blown.
Yeah.
You always know that when I start opening up walls, there's more stuff that I'm going to find that's wrong that's just on the exterior.
So a lot of times
when you start opening up walls, things go, it's just, take your budget, and there's a line item for that. It's the open up wall line item.
I'm going to make Rick a t-shirt for his birthday.
What's that?
Don't ever open up walls.
Don't open up the walls.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.